I've been predicting America will have a civil war or revolution since 2020. Back then, this sort of thing appeared distant, like something you would read about in history book. The scary thing is that now it's real. My friends at the Sit and Adams podcast like to say wars like this go from people larring to until they stop, and the larring turns real. Hitler was larring conquering Eastern Europe. The communists were larring revolution in the American South was LARPing secession. It's all fun in games until the Nerf guns get replaced for AR-15s. The scary thing now is that there have been a series of horrifying events that only make sense in a context of a society that's about to have a civil war. The most recent example is Texas saying the federal government has abandoned duty to the nation by letting millions of immigrants cross the Mexican border, and Texas won't take it anymore. Now half the states in the country have supported Texas, and 10 have offered to send troops to help protect Texas. Maine and Colorado tried to take Trump off the ballot, and New Mexico tried to ban guns. These are all things in which the only previous precedent in our nation's history was the last Civil War. The last time states bucked the central government in this manner, or states took candidates from the main opposition party off their ballot, was 1860. That's not a good sign for a bunch of reasons. I think that we'll start having violence over the next year. I don't think American society can make it through the 2024 election without collapsing into civil war. We might not even have that much time, if I'm being honest. Have you heard of crypto? Of course you have. More specifically, have you heard of the usual problems in crypto? Shadowy agents who are trying their hardest to steal honest people's money. Its utopian version is supposed to be a sign of new times, the true end of the old world where financial independence and power is returned to the rightful hands of the many, not the few. Meet SA Network, a crypto project that is working hard to fulfill that promise. It is a company at the vanguard of finance. It enables sovereignty, security, and lightning-fast crypto trades with its unique blend of a centralized order book while staying fully non-custodial. Zen Exchange is the first such exchange of this new concept and is available now for everyone to use. You can trade pairs in different chains like Ethereum, BNB chain, and Polygon, or soon Solana. Not a trader? No worries. You can reap the rewards of the network by staking and supporting the SA Network's decentralized nature. Half of the trading fees go to the community. Join SA Network community today to participate in the future of finance at discord.gg/project-SA. And if you would like to try out some crypto trading, make sure to check out Tozen Exchange at SL Tozen Exchange. Part 1: Deciding Factors. On this channel I have multiple long videos talking about why America might have a civil war and what sort of context informs it. The shortest answer I'll use to summarize it here is that there are very clear patterns which predict when societies have revolutions or civil wars. Peter Turchin is a great model which 10 years ago predicted America would have a civil war. His computer model has predicted the Russian Revolution, French Revolution, Roman civil wars, Black Death, or the religious wars of the 17th century to the exact periods they took place, and based off 3 variables, those being elite overproduction, or how many people are competing for elite jobs, low average wages, and inequality. These 3 factors predict revolutions and civil wars. Given that once 80% of the population is poor and has no incentive to cooperate, it means that society falls apart. This then results in a situation which different factions split up among the population. Since the mainstream is failing over history, this has been the whites and reds, north and south, Armagnac and Burgundians, or Lancasters and Yoris. In each case, these factions represented subbed demographics of the population trying to take over in our. This is the college-educated left versus non-college-educated right. As I explain here in this text, while every single policy the left pushes benefits the college-educated, giving them jobs and power. Meanwhile, the opposite is true for the right, which stands for the military, business, and religious interests who don't base their social status off college degrees. I would highly recommend the book Leviathan and Its Enemies by Samuel Francis. It's one of the best political books I've ever read, where Francis was a conservative who in this book was doing a Marxist class analysis of modern society. It talks about how the college-educated, or the managerial class as he calls them, dominate society, and thus the left dominates all the institutions. As a general rule, you can predict if someone is right or left-wing based off how much agency they have in their work. Anyone who works in a large bureaucracy will tilt left, and anyone who has agency in their work, even if they're poor, like small business owners or farmers, will tilt right. Our society is managed by vast impersonal bureaucracies, so the left can manage all the large institutions, whether Hollywood, the media, Wall Street corporations, the high ranks of the military, the churches, presidency, government, bureaucracy, and tech. One of the ways I hone my predictive abilities is to look backwards over history, to see what people were accurate in predicting the future. Then I try to figure out what things they did right and use it myself. There are some absurd examples. I do wonder how much of this is on a purely intuitive level that we don't understand. Like there was a book 100 years ago that said the Lord of Mars would be called the Alona. Another book written in the 60s, and here's a text walls. It got a lot of stuff right. Said that in 2011 America would have its first black president named Abomi. However, there are about 5 other theories of history besides Turchin, which converged on America having a civil war in the 2020s. You have Goldstein, which in 70s looked at economic factors, saying America will have a major war in the 2020s. This is one of the worst written books I have ever read, so please thank me for reading it for you. Then the Strauss House system in the 90s predicted America would have a civil war in the 2020s due to generational patterns. Also authors like Amu Dakour in the 60s thought in the 21st century America would have a period of civil wars and Caesarism like the late Roman Republic. With all of these factors together, I can say it's probable that we'll have another civil war soon. I want to be clear that I'm not sure what type of conflict this will be. I do think the right would win, given it gives the best incentives to young men who fight wars while the left hates them. The left also hates martial traits like aggression, discipline, hierarchy, duty, or honor. The left is split into a bunch of city-states while the right has a single geographic region, enlisted men and officers in the military. Tilt right, while the left has the top brass of the leadership. All food, oil and manufacturing production is in conservative areas. For all of these reasons, I think the right has a very large advantage over the left. That being said, it's hard for me to get further than that. The world is chaotic, and one of my catchphrases that I'm betting against God. What that means is that there are a million ways to be wrong and only a handful to be right. Almost all predictions of the future are wrong, and so will mine be. Anyone who claims any other their standard is a charlatan. I have a solid amount of correct and incorrect predictions under my belt. Keep in mind, I'm a 22-year-old with no credentials. Listen to me at your own risk. The way the future works is that there are key moments in which seconds determine everything and change the future. World War I was like that, in which there are many timelines with a central powers win, and that completely changes the rest of the century. Also, at the start of World War I, there were a series of decisions which decided everything. You could have seen a war without Britain as an example. The problem is it's impossible to figure out which of these die rolls will turn out, as in most cases there are about 7 different options that all have a less than 20% likelihood, so it's really difficult to figure out which 20% shot's going to happen. I'm certain that in the next year we'll have a handful of these die rolls. My friends like to stress out the future here, and what I tell them is that we've done everything we can to prepare. I say I'm not going to worry more until I see what those decisive moments are and what's going to happen next, and until then I have no idea what's going to manifest. The exact form in which this war starts is incredibly important in retrospect. Whether this turns into a civil war, revolution, or international war will be obvious, but it won't be to us. For example, slight tilts in the military's loyalty will determine how the war goes. If almost all of the military affects to the right, it'll be like the French Revolution, where the right just slaughters the left. Otherwise, if it's more, it could be like the previous American Civil War, being a real war with campaigns that years as the military is balanced. A situation which the right could very easily lose is one in which there's a rebellion that's too early, which is very clearly illegal. What I know about the military is that they are thankfully loyal to the law. If the rightist rebels are very clearly in the wrong, the military, which in most cases tilts right, will just crush it. This would then make the entire right look like traitors. The left could use this to legally crush the rebellion in its entirety using charges of insurrection. This is why I've told the right repeatedly to not rebel out of the blue. The left's greatest trick is baiting the right into hazard. The left psychology is female and the right's is male. Women will do low-level aggression much more than men. They lie more, spread more rumors, insult more, and nonviolent action. Men tend to go from 1 to 10, and that guys are either friends or they're beating the crap out of each other. I think the left is trying to agitate the right so much so that the right has to do something crazy so that the left can get a consensus. The right is dangerous. It's effectively a wife begging her husband to beat her again and again so that when he actually does do so, she can take him to court as an abuser. The sad thing is that in our society, she can just say that he beat her without any evidence, and the court will believe it. I know a couple of people that happen to. We all need to be very careful over the next year. For normal people, keep your eyes open for when these decisive shifts might happen. If you're a blue person in Texas or a red person in California, try to figure out when a good time would be to get out for your own safety. Lots of death happens in civil wars, and people hate the other side. Think of all the Jews in Poland in 1939 who considered fleeing, then thought of how all their family, work, and friends were there. They then died at a wit. It was so horrible they couldn't predict it, but that didn't stop it from happening. This also all happened within living memory for people in power watching. Be careful of traps the other side might be placing. You have the weight of history on your shoulders. For all of us in these hard times, we must do our duty and stay honorable. My father said to me growing up, Rudyard, there are certain hills that you have to die on to be a man. At the end you will be judged whether or not you stood where you need to stand. Part 2, our emotional state. Something we forget in this day and age is that human societies are living, breathing things. Since they're filled with living, breathing people, experience the same emotions and mental illnesses that individuals do. A great failing of our society is that we need a spreadsheet or scientific study to say what's obvious to anyone with a supple mind. It's obvious women are more emotional than men. I communicate with women differently due to that. It's obvious that America is a better country in Mexico, given tens of millions of Mexicans immigrated here. In the reverse didn't happen. If a guy is charging you with a machete, you should be scared. The thing is that if you just look outside, it's obvious to me that we're about decivil War, this is kind of cringe since the worst people say this, but I think I might be an empath. I can't help but pick up on the emotions of the people around me. When I'm in a city, I can feel a certain vibe based off that city. When I speak before a crowd, I feel that it has an energy that I